Welcome, everyone, to the Crazy Canuck Truckin' podcast. We are so happy to have you join us. I am one of your hosts. I am Bridget. I am the Size Matters Dakotan, and I am here with
the Crazy Canuck Dave. Hey, Size Matters. Talking about North Dakota, I'm sitting in Saskatchewan right now. There's Saskatchewan, and I think I just saw pieces of North Dakota go flying by.
Could you kindly hold down the wind? Please hold it down. It's a bit brisk over here. I'm looking at a high of -5 degrees Fahrenheit today, so I don't appreciate all that you're doing for me, Dave.
Well, it's coming from your area. I don't know. I would like you to slow it down, like put up some, like grow some shelter belts or something in North Dakota so we don't have this problem.
Well, we plant a few. We've done our best for trees, but remember, it's the prairie, just like the prairies up there. Nonetheless,
you're trying to get all the tumbleweed up this way.
It's better than us having to fight them in the field down here, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I hear you there.
So nonetheless, even though you and I are in colder, windier places such as Saskatchewan and North Dakota, we have a guest today who's from an entirely different area, and he's probably the warmest of the three. Who you got today, Dave?
Yeah, I think it probably is a little bit warmer there. They got quite a dump of snow there this week, and he's from a little town called Tin Cap, Ontario, and his name is Fred Grandel. Welcome to our program, Fred. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to ask, as soon as you said a small town of Tin Cap, define small town, I'd like to know.
We have maybe 300 people. We're not really considered a town. We're considered maybe like a suburb. And most people, my wife asked me to stop telling people that we live behind the Tin Cap restaurant because she thought like I was making it sound like we were living in the dumpster. So now I need to tell all my friends we live in the subdivision behind the Tin Cap restaurant.
Now, when you say 300 people, that doesn't bother me. I'm in a community of about 300 myself.
Yeah.
I have a cafe. I don't live behind it, the restaurant like you do, although I like your definition because it does make it sound like you're in a slightly shady neighborhood.
Is that the bar that you live in, Size Matters?
It's not. We have a separate bar versus a separate cafe. Okay. I spend equal amounts of time in each place as appropriate.
Just had to clarify that. So
they are the centers of life in communities. How's that?
Yeah. So Fred, tell us about your background. Who are you? Where are you from? Well, we know you're from the large metropolis of Tin Cap, but tell us more about yourself.
Sure. I grew up on a family-sized dairy operation about 9 minutes from here. So this is home for me. We've come back, but this is home. And my parents sold the farm sort of with my blessing. We did have a conversation about it when I was 16 years old, turning 17, with the vision that I was going to do something else. And my father was very, very concerned that I would get hurt. I have mild cerebral palsy on my right side. And when I get busy and lifting things, I often don't know where my right hand is or right arm. So when you're around PDO shafts and moving conveyors and cattle, that's not necessarily a good thing. So he actually made the wise choice of discouraging me away from farming. And now that I've grown up, I realize that I'm more interested in watching farming on YouTube than I am actually doing it. So that turned out to be a very wise move for him. I went on from there to Bible college and served in 2 different churches as a youth pastor over the course of 14 years. At the start of our first church, I married my high school sweetheart. So she moved up with me to a town of 600 people called Arkona, Ontario. And that's halfway between London and Sarnia, Ontario. We were there for 4 years. Then we went to a larger church in Kingston, Ontario and I served there for 10 years, and she served there for 8. She was on staff as well. But there came a day where I was fairly burned out. I had been working a lot of hours, lost my hobbies. I had a staff member below me who told me that I was in a church bubble. Came to the realization that I had lost way too many contacts that might not go to church or might not be interested in church. Had lost interest in other things. So the day came where the church and I decided to part ways. And my wife said I was really discouraged, and today I know better, but I had no idea what my other skill sets were. I had automatically thought that I would, apply for another church-based job and end up doing that. But what happened was kind of out of left field. A good friend of mine is a dispatcher for a small town courier called JJ Express in Kingston. And he called me up just a few days after I was at home, and he said, "Hey, we're super busy." He said, "Can you come and drive for me?" And I knew what he meant because we were friends, and he had told me about the business, and all of his guys and girls are self-employed brokers. And you bring your own vehicle and you just go. There's very few rules. So I said to him, I said, "Hey, I'm just really burned right now. I made a commitment to my wife and to God that I'd take 6 weeks to rest. If I'm still interested, can I call you in a month?" "Oh, absolutely. We're expecting Canada Post to strike by August. And if that happens, or even if it hits the media," he said, "we will be super busy. I'll have all kinds of work for you." Okay. August long weekend goes by. I call him up. He's like, "Sure, come on in." I'm like, "Well, what do I bring?" "Well, I don't know. Just bring your van." I said, "Do you want my social insurance number?" "Yeah, we should probably get that on file." So I get to his office. He's got these boxes going to Smith Falls, which is an hour drive. He's got an address. It's like, just go drop them off. All right. So I go drop them off. Coming back in, he's like, "Come on back into town. I've got a letter going to Gananoque." Okay, there goes another hour. So I get home. By now, it's 5 o'clock. And we're on the phone, and he says, "You're going to Cambridge tomorrow." I said, "Cambridge, Ontario?" "Yep, it'll be ready at 8 o'clock. "Oh, okay." So the next day I went to Cambridge. And this adventure continued for about 18 months. And we had a lot of fun together. I only got mad at him once because I thought he was dispatching me too hard. Sort of thing. I had way too much to do, and he's trying to give me more and more and more. And finally I just kind of lost it and said, "Look, give me a break." But otherwise, we always had fun, and he's still a good friend of mine. We text back and forth weekly.
Only one time in 18 months. That's got to be a driver dispatcher record, I think.
I guess, yeah. It probably helped that I had a really, really good relationship going in. Yeah. And I was and still am, highly interested in the last mile industry. So I tried to suck every piece of information I possibly could out of him and out of that business to understand how this concept of what they're doing is same day courier. What I'm doing now is, working for a much larger company doing next day courier, but how it worked and what they expected of me and what they expected of their customers and how much money could be made and these sorts of things.
So that's what I want to know. When you are talking about these short time couriers, this was new to me. I'm familiar with what Dave does is long haul. I didn't even think about it outside of a company like a FedEx or UPS, that there would be someone else doing these short line couriers, if you will. And I'm going to guess that's been happening way longer than most of us realize. And what's the radius? How far will you go in that short amount of time?
We used to say we would go as far as anyone's willing to pay us. The thing is, though, is they charge, their rates are probably up because fuel is so much more, but at the time they were charging $1.20 a kilometer. So for this, plus you get into upsizing fees, right? Like this thing going to Cambridge had to weigh, it was one of my heavier ones. It's probably 200 or 300 pounds. So they charge more for that because I'm going to need help getting it off, and it's harder on the vehicle and stuff like this. But we have stories of people, driving 4 hours, locking themselves into their vehicle, not knowing what to do, calling the company to go get the spare set of keys at home to go toot toot and hand them 2 sets of keys and drive away. So it tends to be, like a lot of things in business, very emotional. Like, we can get it done quick, and the customer's like, yeah, I don't care what it costs. It's got to get done. And then the other side of it is medical. It's just got to be there. And for whatever reason, the bigger medical couriers are unavailable or can't get it there quick enough. We could. I can't remember what I rushed to a children's hospital in Toronto, but it was some important thing for an operation that was supposed to happen fairly quickly. And they sent me for a pickup at the Belleville Hospital going to downtown Toronto, and it was needed. So that was some of the cool stuff.
That's where I have a question is, if you're doing medical courier, we're talking blood, medication. Mm-hmm. Do you need any special paperwork or requirements to do that?
No, and I'm not suggesting that's a good thing.
Okay, good to know.
And that was part of. Now I know I haven't done same day couriering in COVID, so I'm assuming that even that has really, really tightened things up. But like, I used to walk into all over the place in Kingston General Hospital with a JJ Express cap on. Go here, go there, pick it up. And they learn to recognize you. But at first, I'm like, who do I think I am? Like, going to the basement of the Kingston General Hospital, the pharmacy, to pick up this drug for someone. And like, hi, I'm JJ Express. Oh, good. There you go. You're going to Brockville. Yeah.
And you are doing this in your own vehicle. This is not a special courier truck.
No, in that company, it's all, they would call themselves, they call their drivers brokers, and that we're all our own entities and operating our own small business.
I'm sure people are wondering this. Let's take the medical courier off to the side. You've had the 300-pound item that had to be hauled. What's the weirdest thing someone has paid for you to take?
Human eyeballs.
Okay.
Yep.
Wasn't going to expect that one, but human eyeball.
I was smart enough to take a picture of it. They're in like a cooler that looks like it's from the 70s, like when we used to have kids. I'm in the 80s, but we used to, get the big cooler of Kool-Aid, on the back of the pickup truck in the hayfield. Yeah. It's got the round top on it. And on the round top, there was a sticker that said human eyeballs. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I got to take a picture of this. I didn't open it, just like the label on the top.
I would have wanted that in something clear plastic to look at me out of the cup holder the whole way.
Yeah.
That would be different.
And of all places, it was going from Greyhound is unfortunately no longer with us. The company, I believe, is totally finished up, or is going to be for financial reasons. But it was going from one of the hospitals in downtown Kingston to the Greyhound bus station. Because Greyhound also does some courier work, or did.
So yep. They do. Yep, they did courier work because we have. I work for a company that's in crop protection, and we have actually shipped like our booth from one place to the other using Greyhound from time to time. We've done that with some odd things too. Okay, so now, how far? You've said we'll go as far as you'll pay us. How far have you needed to go in order to make one of those hauls?
I would have liked to go further. Cambridge was one of my furthest ones, and then going east. There's I can't remember the town, but there's a little town outside of Montreal. They had the contract with Lafarge Cement doing all their same day stuff. So what would happen quite often is one of the plants would break down, but they'd have the part at another plant. So we would go to, in this case, the plant in Bath, Ontario, to pick it up, taking it to the other side of Montreal. So I always dreamed of going further. It's actually part of the reason I left and went to Purelator, because I had felt like there was some other reasons, but I felt like I had explored and done everything that this small company had to offer, and I didn't want to get bored.
So you were driving mainly like a parcel type van at that time?
It was just an old 2004 Dodge minivan with the seats out. That's all it
Okay.
was. And sometimes we'd have a little envelope, and sometimes they would dispatch me to Purelator to work as an outside agent, which is how I met the crew there. And I would just jam it as full as I possibly could because they were paying per piece and per stop.
So then you went from that small courier company to Purelator. Does
Yeah,
that involve a different license, or you still driving panel truck there?
yeah. So what happened was is I wasn't with JJ very long, and they dispatched me to Kingston Purelator. I couldn't even remember where it was, so I asked this dispatcher for the address, and he gave it to me. And once I showed up, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've been here before, shipping packages," but I had no idea that Purelator is the largest courier within Canada and how big their network is. So I went in there, and they gave me 25 deliveries going to one of the suburbs in Kingston with an old-fashioned pen and paper sheet to get people to sign.
Yep.
And then for the first time, instead of having one or two or three drops, I had to try and figure out how to do 25 drops and, get done today, which is a skill that couriers learn. So in that time, there was times where I was in there 4, sometimes 5 days a week, because they were short-staffed, and been there doing this off and on for a while. Sometimes they wouldn't call us for 2-3 weeks, and you go back. And a person that was doing similar work in there said to me one morning when we're loading trucks, he said, well, it won't be long and you and I will be at the door. And I said, why? Oh, you didn't hear? They're finally getting organized, and they're looking for 5 drivers. Oh, thank you very much. Walked straight to the manager, and I said, how do I work for you directly? He's like, looks at me, what do you mean? I said, I just want to work for Purelator directly. How do I do that? Oh, go to our website and start going through the HR process. And, he told me where the link was and stuff. And so I did. It took a while, but they gave me a call in April of 2018. And I had applied for loading trucks, being told that everybody at that time at Purelator gets in the door by loading trucks in the middle of the night. And you wait till someone retires, or wait till they expand, and then seniority will lead you to a driving position if that's what you wanted. So I had mentally prepared myself to go in at 1:30 in the morning and load trucks and keep building relationships and wait for that day. So HR called me and they said, we understand that you've applied for loading trucks in the morning, but we're really short on drivers. Would you be interested in going straight to driving? Absolutely. I'd love to. And I was the first courier at the Kingston terminal to never have to work on the dock. Since then, with the jump in e-commerce, we have plenty of guys and girls who barely understand what the dock looks like because they went straight to driving. But
do you think that's a disadvantage, not having been on the dock and now driving?
I'll often say yeah, it is. That's the short answer. I help out on the dock at Christmas. It's kind of a win-win. We save some money for our family and overtime to pay for gifts. But the harvest mentality at work, like, this has got to get done. I'm available 5:30 in the morning. I'll go in, and there's an advantage both ways. So the people that load trucks but have never been out on the road don't understand why their drivers seem so obsessive compulsive as to why each parcel has to be in a certain spot on the shelf. And the drivers don't understand why their preloaders don't listen when, instead of talking to them nicely, just come in every morning and, rip a strip off their back because the parcels are not on the right spot on the shelf. So, yeah, that's
It's
something
a little
as a
high
company
pressure
that
then.
we're always
Yeah.
trying to work on, is to that balance, and that relationship between people that load and people that drive.
I would say there's probably an awful lot of stress, particularly at that time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that could be, goes for a lot of jobs is do jobs besides your own just to see what it's like doing that.
Exactly.
Because you can complain and whine all you want. You have no idea what the other person's trying to work through.
Yeah.
And we all bring a lot of our own stress with us when we go to work every day, and not everybody understands what that is in the background.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is I had noticed that as Christmas got tired, people were working less overtime. So as Christmas approached, people were getting more and more tired, I'm trying to say, and working less overtime. And then in Ontario, there was an announcement made like right after New Year's that there was going to be some fairly large restrictions until the end of January. And then immediately our freight levels got really strong again, particularly on Monday and Tuesday. So now I'm like I'm not in charge of this. I'll sometimes say to my coworkers, when they have a question for me that is above my pay grade, I'll either say it's above my pay grade, or I'll say, I'm just a monkey in the circus here like you. But I do pick up on this stuff and go, okay, so we've been pushing hard now for 2 months, thinking that you're going to come to work in January and have a somewhat normal day, only to look around and realize that we're just as busy now as we were in mid-December. But that's nothing compared to, what healthcare workers are going through, right? Like, it's just, COVID is not stopping, and it's getting very, very difficult for a lot of people.
So knowing your background, what you had done before, as someone who was, I want to say, minister, pastor, those were the capacities you were in.
Yeah.
What parallels do you have from then to what you do now, or how have you taken those transferable skills and used them where you're at today?
Well, definitely time management. I would say that Purelator pays pretty good, but they also have some very high expectations as to how you use your time and how much productivity there is in a day. So the ability to understand, how am I ever going to get this done and get home to my wife and 2 little kids at night? Because at first it didn't matter. When I first started, we didn't have children. So it's like, well, whenever I get done, I get done. Hopefully the door's still unlocked when I get there. But now, I have a desire to be home and, a commitment to, well, I might be half an hour late, but I'm going to try and be here. It's another reason why I went to Purelator was because of the work hours. So the ability to say, okay, in your head, this is how I'm going to do the route today, even if it saves me 2 kilometers. As soon as we have to backtrack because you forgot something or because you didn't take the most efficient way, is when we lose time.
When I was working on a second degree, one of the case studies I read in a business law class actually had to do with UPS in the States, and how UPS had so many efficiency factors for their drivers. There was a certain way they wanted you to step into the truck, steps taking out of the truck to minimize impact on the body, but also efficiency, just what you're saying with the route, et cetera, and how the packages were loaded in the vehicle. So as you talk about this, all sounds very familiar. I hope Purelator and UPS talk to each other, because it sounds like there's some good crossover things that could be used.
Yeah, and I'm fairly certain they do, but yeah, absolutely.
So let's get back to your health. You had said you have monocerebral palsy. What is that? What causes it? What can you tell us about that and the challenges that you face every day?
I think I said mild cerebral palsy.
Oh, mild. Okay.
And by mild, I mean is when I was in college, I did some support work and worked with people that have cerebral palsy much worse than I do. What it means for me is that it's directly halfway down my body. I can actually feel a difference from my left to my right. And so it's caused paralysis in my right arm and my right leg, ankle. And everywhere, but those are the parts that move, right? And we notice it more. And this was something that happened to me when I was born.
Yeah.
So the other way that cerebral palsy can happen is a toddler can take a bad fall and hit the back of their head. But that wasn't me. It was I was a big boy that was overdue and took a long time coming out.
Yeah.
So when you say it feels different, you notice what feels different from one side to the other. It's almost like a lag, a delay with the paralysis. Is that what I'm understanding?
It's just like a slight numb feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I can forget about it. Like I can have a day of really good day and even forget that I have it. So there's very little pain. In fact, the opposite is true. That with it, when I go and get my vaccines, my flu shot now, I ask for the right arm because I don't have the 3 days with sore arm afterwards. So that's an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my oldest grandson was born with cerebral palsy, and it
Okay.
affects his legs a lot. And yeah, and I have a niece also that deals with that. So what are the challenges you talked about in farming? It could be dangerous because you can't feel your arm. That's also something that you deal with in trucking, to be aware of your surroundings and how you're getting in and out of vehicles, right?
Yeah, and for whatever reason, Ontario always gets blessed with a decent ice storm between Christmas and New Year's, and it happened again this year. So we start winter with an inch of clear ice on the ground. And my route is quite remote, so that's my biggest challenge right now. I have two big goals this winter. Don't put the truck in a situation that I can't get out of myself. Like, fine if I got to lay down a bag of sand, but I don't want to call a tow truck. And two, don't fall. Um, and and those are challenges that all of our drivers face. And the more remote you go, the worse it gets. But with me, I mean, I don't have my balance as it is. So here I am carrying this Amazon parcel, and you get to the steps and they're not treated, or you miss something and don't see something. And
Yeah.
I actually recently fell just before busy season here in the basement of our house. Kids were in bed. I was walking down here to relax, and I collapsed in front of my lazy boy and broke my toe on my right foot. I couldn't believe it. I was like just in total shock. But that was another reminder that one, I need more calcium in my diet, and I'm a firm believer in drinking milk, and I had cut down on that. So I immediately went back to drinking milk. And the other reminder is the more fatigued I get, the more prone I am to falls. So I had been at work super early, busy day, have supper, put the kids to bed. I can finally relax. I let down my guard. Decided to carry too much. Like, I had, this nice, beautiful dessert glass dish and, a pop and all these things because I'm going to settle into my lazy boy for a couple hours and probably fall asleep. And bam. And so often that's when accidents happen. Like, you're just right in front of Victory Lane, and you think, I can just let loose now, and bad things come about. So,
as another former dairy kid, yeah, don't ever give up the milk. Maybe you just substitute in some ice cream. I'm okay with that. Lots of cheese as well in my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So what are the positives? What has cerebral palsy taught you that is a benefit every day for you?
I think I go back to something my brother told me when I was young. My parents were, like a lot of parents, I think I'd be the same way, super protective of me because of my disability. So they had already instilled this idea in me that maybe farming wasn't the right option. So I was talking about this with my brother, and he didn't disagree with that, but he simply said, Fred, you can do anything you put your mind to. Anything you decide to do, you can do it. There's actually a YouTuber, maybe you've heard of him. He's named himself the Harmless Farmer.
Yes, I
Right?
know who he is. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
using
know.
that as our example, yeah. Yeah. That being said,
Yeah.
still try and be wise about it. I recently got off a route that had been changed, and when it got changed, it went more commercial and industrial, which means the boxes got heavy. So I just said to myself, I can do this, but it's going to wear me out quicker than it's going to wear someone out who doesn't have a disability lifting 70-pound boxes all day. And I
Mhm.
found another option and went to a route that is mostly e-commerce. And in e-commerce, 95% of the parcels are light, otherwise they're too expensive to ship. So that's easier on my body.
That's excellent. And let's go back to, first of all, under that parallel that you just drew with the harmless farmer. For folks who don't
Yes.
know who he is,
Andy.
uh, and I'll go look up Andy's name. We can put that in the show notes. But
Yes.
Andy was he was 2 or 3 years old when he was in a farm accident and lost both of his arms.
Yes.
So for most of his life, he doesn't realize what it would be like to operate with 2 fully functioning arms, and they are missing at the shoulders. So for him, he wears slip-on shoes and he uses his feet like I would use hands. Eating, holding things. I've watched him shoot a gun. So this is a guy who has become incredibly adaptable. So Fred, when you say that you realize what those constraints might be in your life and how to do them differently, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
My grandson, Jaden, he calls it super palsy.
Oh,
That's
yeah?
his superpower. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah.
I
I'd love
love
to meet him
kids'
someday.
attitudes.
But last year he was part of the running team at school because his uncle, my son Caleb, was on the running team and I was on the running team as a kid. So he had to be on the running team at school as well. And my daughter is so good with him. It's like, Jaden, you wanna be on the running team? You go be on the running team,
That's awesome.
you know. And his coach said afterwards that he was the only one that kept running the whole 5K run. I mean, he's not fast because it's kind of, you know how it is. It's kind of a shuffle run, and he kept moving at his pace the whole 5K, and everybody else stopped and walked for a little bit. So
Wow.
he got some good kudos from his coach over that. Yep. Yeah.
That is
So,
phenomenal. And kids deserve that kind of praise that you kept going. You didn't have to be the kid who got the gold, but you kept going.
no. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Fred, I told you beforehand, if you could give us one memory of some trip that you've been on sometime, whether it's personal or work or as a kid, as an adult, some story that always comes to mind as some kind of epic trip for whatever
Sure.
reason.
Well, I've done
What do you have?
a lot of epic trips, but this one came to mind because this one taught me that I am not the guy for over the road trucking. Because when I left my job as a youth pastor, I actually thought of it. I thought of going to school and getting a job, and I called a couple trucking companies, and then this courier thing evolved. But that same fall, when I was starting out as a courier, I also wanted to take the time to explore some other options, and I found this We Drive, You Fly company, online sort of
Yep.
thing that was transporting cars to Florida. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then I looked at what they were paying, and it's like very terrible. It was like $600, and you put the gas in the car. So I'm like doing the math. At that time, fuel's a lot cheaper, and I was picking up these cars that looked fairly economical. And I thought I can do this and still come home with like $100 in my pocket. So I did, and the first trip, it was adventurous and exploring. Had a fairly good time. Learned what it was like to try and get a night's sleep in a minivan at a truck stop, which for me it was impossible because it was so noisy with trucks going in and out all the time. But then the second trip was 2 weeks later, So I went the first day to Toronto, picked up the car, brought it home. Second day, I left. And it's about like 8 hours into the second day. And I remember where I was. I was like in Winchester, Pennsylvania. And all of a sudden, I'm so bored that I don't know what to do with myself. Like there's no traffic, there's nothing going on. I have my Bluetooth device. So I called a good friend of mine, and he didn't know what I was doing. He's like, "What's up?" Because I wasn't really talking. I was kind of waiting for him to talk. It's like, "What's up?" I said, "Well, I'm just driving. I'm doing one of these, I drive, you fly things, and I'm, down in Pennsylvania, blah blah blah." He starts laughing. He goes, "Fred, you're more bored right now than a monkey in a cage." And he was right. And like on that trip, like I would call people and they're like, "Hey, Freds, what's up?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing, just driving along here, wondering how you're doing." Well, that's great, but I'm having a pretty busy day, and we talked for 5 minutes. And on that trip also, I also began to understand just how big Florida is. Because personally, we had driven to Orlando, and once you stop for your orange juice at the Florida state line there, and they give you a little thing of orange juice, and you kind of say, "Hey, we're in Florida." We could be at our rental within like 2-3 hours, so you kind of felt like, "Yay, we're there." So I had arrived at the state line at noon, and I had till 8 o'clock to be just north of Miami. And I thought, "Oh my goodness, like I got all the time in the world," so I'm taking my time there and get back in the car, and I'm dreaming about how the weather's so beautiful. I'm going to find some nice patio to sit and have a 2-hour supper somewhere before I had to deliver the car. But then I got looking at how far I had to drive, and I went, "Oh my! I have 7.5 hours to drive 8 hours." Thankfully, it wasn't not like just in time shipping where I absolutely had to be there. It was more like if I'm not there by 8 o'clock, maybe I'll miss my tip or something. So two things a bit over the road trucking that I really respect about you guys, Crazy Canuck, is one, I have time constraints too, but I've figured out like how to deal with that stress and how to be home by 5 o'clock. But the time constraint of having to drive 1,400 miles and having less than 48 hours to get there is a different kind of stress, and it's a different skill to be able to deal with that. And then also knowing what to do with your mind, because I couldn't occupy myself anymore. It just wasn't something that was going to be for me.
I always tell new hires, new interns, know the things you want to do, but as importantly, know the things you don't want to do. Fred, you discovered what you don't want to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good. We really appreciate you coming on with us, Fred. And
well, thank you for having me.
It's been a great day.
We'll keep talking in the future. So whatever
Absolutely.
we need to remind people, size matters.
We would love for everyone to follow us where they get their favorite podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating. We'd appreciate that. And reach out via crazycanucktruckin@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Any comments, suggestions, and ideas would be outstanding. Everybody have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us today.